What's up, everybody? LC again, just stopping in to say what's up. I want to share something with you guys this morning, just the story of Jesus walking on the water. And a lot of us are familiar with that story. If you've seen movies like Bruce Almighty, where Morgan Freeman gives Jim Carrey the ability to be God for a short time, and he begins to walk on the water. That's like one of the first things he did in the movie, and so like a lot of us are really familiar with that with this story. But I just wanted to look at it a little deeper this morning, and I love this story because it's like one of the best representations of our walk with Christ. It starts off with Jesus on the side of the mountain praying, and he sends off the 12 on the other side of the lake, and he catches up with them later on by walking on the water. And immediately when they see him, they become afraid because they think it's a ghost. And Jesus tells them, no, take courage, do not be afraid, for it is I. And Peter says, Lord, if it's you, I want to walk on the water, call me out. And the Lord does that. He says, come. And Peter begins to walk on the water, and he begins to walk closer and closer to God. But then he begins to start paying attention to the winds, and he begins to sink. And the Lord reaches down and saves him immediately. And he says, you have little faith, or why did you doubt? And when Jesus and Peter get back into the boat, the rest of the 12 are like, surely this man is the Son of God. And like I said before, I love this story because it's the perfect representation of our walk with Christ. The first stage I like to think of is when Jesus begins to approach the disciples in the boat. The first thing that happens is they become afraid. They become afraid. They say, it's a ghost. And the Lord tells them, like, no, it's me. Do not be afraid, for it is I. Be courageous. And so often in our walk with Christ, for those of us who are walking with Christ, or for those of us who aren't walking with Christ, when he approaches us, we become afraid. And you might ask, well, where's the fear coming from? It comes from a comfort zone. We don't want to leave our comfort zone. The boat in this story represents a comfort zone. It's not necessarily a safe comfort zone, but it is a comfort zone. In verse 24, it says, but the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves, because the wind was against it. So that says that the disciples didn't necessarily have control over the boat, because the wind was blowing waves that were hitting the boat and causing it to go farther out into the lake than they had planned. So our comfort zone necessarily isn't a safe place to be, but since it's a comfortable place to be, we choose to stay there. Now the Lord comes up to them walking on water, which is outside of the boat, which is outside of the comfort zone and beyond their understanding as well, because he's on top of the water. So they're automatically afraid, and they're like, this can't be from God. But it is the Lord. And a lot of the time when the Lord calls us to follow him, or even calls us into deeper intimacy, we don't want to leave our comfort zone, and we become afraid. When we allow these two things to take control of us, we miss out on opportunities to enter into deeper intimacy with the Lord. And we miss out on things. And the Lord is calling us to higher understandings, to deeper revelations. But because of our comfort zones that we don't want to abandon, and our fear, we miss out on those things. Out of the 12, only one was courageous enough to step out of the boat, and that was Peter. And this is the second stage. Peter is walking on the water because he abandoned himself. He left his comfort zone. He abandoned his fear. So now he's being used by the Lord. The Lord is using him in a way that Peter probably never thought he'd be used. He grew up fishing on this lake, and now he's walking on top of it. So the Lord is showing him that he can use Peter if he trusts in the Lord. So now Peter is walking on the water with the Lord. He has entered into deeper intimacy with the Lord. The rest of the 12 are still in the same place that they were before, because they're allowing their comfort zone, their fear, to get into the way of that. But Peter abandoned that, so now he's walking on the water with the Lord. So now he has entered into deeper intimacy with the Lord. The third stage is as Peter gets deeper and deeper with the Lord, he begins to pay attention to the winds. Going back to verse 24, it says, because the winds were against the boat had been pushed farther into the lake than they had planned. I like to look at Ephesians 2:2, and it says, the prince of the air. And a lot of time, if you just kind of think about wind and air, it's pretty much the same thing in our understanding. And so my theology is, and the wind in this story represents the enemy. And like I said before, the boat is the comfort zone. And it says in verse 24 that the wind was against the boat. So going back to the first stage, our comfort zones might be comfortable, but a lot of the time the enemy is controlling our comfort zone. So if we don't step outside of that comfort zone, a lot of the time that comfort zone can steer us away from the Lord. Just a side note. But anyway, Peter started paying attention to the winds, and he began to sink. He began to sink, and he took his eyes off the Lord, and he began to sink. The next stage is the Lord pulling Peter out of the water and telling him, why did you doubt? You have little faith. Why did you doubt? And I love this stage because the Lord is faithful. The Lord is faithful. Even when we've abandoned ourselves and now we're walking on the water and we sink, the first thing we want to do is sabotage ourselves. Oh, I fell short. I did this, I did that. But the Lord isn't doing that. Of course, He's going to ask you, why did you doubt? Where's your faith? But He's not condemning you. The first thing He does is rescue you from your mistake, and He begins to rehabilitate you. And that's the Lord, because that's how faithful He is. The next stage is them getting back into the boat, and the rest of the 12 are completely amazed. They're like, surely this man is the Son of God. A lot of the times, the Lord will use somebody in your life to draw you into deeper intimacy with Him through that person's life. For instance, that person in my life is my mother. The Lord has shown me through her life the trials and the tribulations that she's been through, but she's conquered majority of those, and I've gained so much respect for the Lord just based off of what He's done in her life. So I'm amazed just by what He's done in somebody else's life. So it draws me into deeper intimacy with the Lord because of what He's done in somebody else's life. And that's exactly what Peter was. Peter was an instrument for the rest of the 12 to draw them into deeper intimacy with the Lord. All of this in this small little story, and that's why I love this story so much. So all these stages, you have the stage where you're afraid. The Lord is calling you into deeper intimacy because you're in a comfort zone that's not necessarily safe. You're in a comfort zone and you're afraid, so you say no, or you say that it's not from God. But the majority of the time, it is from God. The second stage, where you finally get over your fear, you finally step outside of your comfort zone. You're walking with the Lord in ways that you never knew you could. You're walking with the Lord. He's using you in ways that you never thought He would. Now you're there. But the next stage, you start paying attention to the winds, or you start paying attention to the enemy. So now you're sinking. And once you sink, you think that the Lord is going to condemn you, or that you've done wrong. So now the Lord is gone. But the Lord surprises you again, and He pulls you out, and He starts to rehabilitate you and ask you questions as to why you did this or why you did that. And once He puts you back on solid ground, there's people that were watching you during that fall that you never knew were watching you, and now their lives have changed because you've conquered that trial through the name of Christ. So all of that in just that small little story. So my advice to you this morning is, if you're not walking on the water, start walking on the water. If you are walking on the water, keep your eyes on Christ. If you take your eyes off Christ and you find yourself falling, don't worry. Take heart. The Lord will pull you up, and He will begin to rehabilitate you. And once you put your feet back on solid ground, you will be amazed at how many people are actually watching your life, and how many people actually look up to you. You will be amazed. So I just wanted to share that with you guys this morning. Also, I just got back from Denver, Colorado yesterday on a 2-week tour. We went up to Detroit, Michigan, and back, and it was amazing. A lot of lives were changed. We were expecting to go to the different congregations and change lives at those churches, and although we did, I think majority of the transformation happened amongst ourselves, amongst the people that were on the bus. It was amazing. I had a great opportunity to perform for a lot of congregations. So I want to say thank you to Rory Smallsry and Lee Cole for giving me the opportunity to go on the SYD tour. with you guys and just do the Lord's work. I also got to do a show for Castle Rock Church of Christ up in Colorado, so I thank you for that, Rory, and inviting me to do that. Yeah, these are the shirts that they gave us to wear, Singing Youth of Denver. So I'm gonna be sporting that for a while, and yeah, and also Pastor Salt. I want to give a shout out to my boy MA Double. Pastor Salt just dropped yesterday, so make sure y'all go get that. It's fire, like for real. For those of y'all who are searching for something real, go get that Pastor Salt. You can find him at MA Double on Facebook. If you're friends with me on Facebook, just go to my music page and go to my music on my information and you'll find them on there. No Treasures on Earth, my next mixtape is coming out soon, so y'all stay tuned for that. It should be dropping probably at the end of July or August. I'm still working on some things. I still got to talk to a couple people to get some things orchestrated, but I'm still working on that, so y'all stay in tune for that. But as of now, go get that Pastor Salt, for real. Go get that and start passing that thing around and just showing it to everybody. So shout out to MA Double. I love you, bro. Can't wait to start working with you again. And yeah, so y'all stay tuned. Thank y'all for watching. I hope today was something that you can apply to your lives. I'm praying for all of y'all, and I just thank all of y'all for tuning in. See you guys later.